The maid hesitates as she softly calls out to her young mistress, tension hidden behind her blank gaze as the air in the mansion quietly tightens. A maid bows nervously in the doorway, vowing to fetch him at once, while the seated figures radiate silent pressure that presses on her back. A roaring crowd packs the arena of the Royal Lux Martial Arts and Magic Academy, hungry for the duel's outcome and buzzing with restless energy. Spectators freeze in shock as one fighter's sudden strike slams into his opponent, the onlookers' faces taut with disbelief as the impact echoes. The calm young teacher watches with unreadable eyes, quietly urging Lily on, while his title hangs over him like a weight that will not lift. Lily stands over her collapsed opponent as the announcer declares her victory again, and the stunned arena finally erupts in wild praise. Breathing out with a small sweat on her cheek, Lily tries to steady herself even as the fading adrenaline still clings to her limbs. Her teacher's eyes light up as he silently praises her with a single nice, pride warming his controlled smile in the noisy arena. Among the students, he remarks how Lily pulled it off again and calls it amazing, while the others buzz around him with excited chatter. The teacher stiffens as whispers brand him the commoner teacher and warn each other to keep their distance, and the tension does not ease. He turns, startled, when a voice calls, "Hey sensei," abruptly breaking through his growing isolation. Girls fluster and sweat as they reluctantly greet Frey sensei, caught between their admiration for him and the fear of being seen at his side. Lily steps close, blushing and sweating, anxiously asking Frey sensei how she performed in that decisive match. With an easy grin that hides his own insecurity, he calls her brilliant, says he has no complaints, and casually credits her success to him. Even while admitting even so, Lily insists with nervous intensity that his teaching is the best in the entire country, her words tumbling out. From behind, he watches another male teacher surrounded by girls, the distance between them heavy with unspoken inferiority that settles in his chest. That other teacher laughs amid the crowd, saying no one notices Frey because he lacks noble blood and that this neglect is only natural in their world. Frey lowers his head and calls himself a commoner with no connections beyond the academy, the ellipsis hanging between his teeth like a sigh. Under the open sky, he wishes he could offer more than swordsmanship and magic, while an unseen voice sharply rejects needing anything else from him. With a stiff back and forced sparkle, he declares that he dislikes students touching him and that they should restrain themselves, leaving the girl beside him awkward and deflated in the silence. Frey hides behind his hand, sweating as he scolds himself for belittling his students and wishing he could offer Lily more with her birthday looming over him. He scratches his head and walks past chatting nobles, silently pressuring himself to find a proper present for her that will not feel cheap. A smug teacher smiles among girls while narrating how this academy gathers nobles and how he somehow climbed high enough to teach them, basking in his own story. A single eye glares from the shadows as the narration hints that someone had resented his rise from the very start, and the air turns heavier. A drawn-out call of "Hey Free" slices through the air like a mocking summons that promises nothing good. Facing a grinning man clinging to a girl, Frey hears with a jolt that his expulsion from the academy is confirmed and that the reason is already known. The girl leans in with a sly smile, lamenting to Eris sensei that she never imagined Frey would wrong her, while he fondly calls her his dear student and fiancée Maya. Cold white speech bubbles rain down, piling accusations that her story is only the tip of the iceberg and that many other girls have reported him as well. A pointing hand frames Frey as a faceless culprit while a furious voice blames every incident on his so-called inadequate training and twisted guidance. Clutching his head in theatrical horror, the accuser shrieks that a disgusting beast prowls this prestigious academy in Frey's skin. Across a vast hall, the smug couple huddles together as the man offers to hear Frey's desperate pleas only out of their long friendship, savoring the moment. A sweating officer reaches out to him, warning he is getting complacent, but his words are cut short by Frey's raised hand and quiet refusal. A masked enforcer halts him with an outstretched palm, declaring that Frey is under interrogation and has no right to walk freely anymore. With a warped smile and dead eyes, the noble hisses that Frey must never repeat this and demands if he understands the severity. Frey suddenly bursts into loud laughter, his whole body thrown back as if mocking the entire farce laid out before him. The couple recoils, the man calling his name in alarm while the woman whispers that she fears he has finally lost his mind. Bowing his head, Frey admits he always knew they hated him and mutters that it is simply too bad for both sides. He then lifts his gaze with a sharp grin, taunting that he never expected them to stage such an elaborate charade just to crush him. The noble flushes and trembles, confessing that he had been worried about everything but now strangely feels relieved to drop the mask. As Frey coolly calls that relief a lame excuse, the enraged man lunges forward, vowing to finish Frey off with his own hands here and now. The smug noble curls his gloved fist, relishing how even a defensive Frey will be jailed if he dares to fight back, and the pressure shows. Frey whirls in shock as a small figure streaks past him, the air ripping with sudden motion before he can react. The noble's body flips violently across the floor, his scream tearing out as he crashes down in a heap. Guards rush toward the crumpled noble, shouting if Dono is all right while he lies groaning by the pillar in stunned pain. Still shaken, Eris hauls himself upright with wide eyes as someone calls his name in alarm from across the hall. Frey turns his back and walks away, coldly telling them to control themselves because he wants to be alone with his thoughts for a while. With dead tired eyes, he glances back and flatly asks Arius-sensei if he can just go home now and be done with this circus. As Frey starts to leave, Arius reaches toward him and barks for someone to catch him, while another man hesitates that it is impossible in this chaos. Head lowered so his eyes vanish beneath his bangs, Frey calls out Frey-sensei, as two distant guards silently watch from the stairs, unsure. Lily rushes up, panting and flustered, confessing she heard he was leaving the academy and desperately asking why he has to go. Against a drifting sky, his off-screen voice insists his training is unfit for the academy's girls, while Lily's unseen protest screams that he would never do such things. Lily glares with darkened eyes, reminding him that aside from treating injuries he never once touched her, leaving Frey stunned into a weak Lily. Her voice spikes that she will protest for him, only for his unseen reply to cut in that doing so would only worsen his situation even further. Blushing and trembling, she admits she would be completely lost without him, her sensei, and the words hang between them. From above, their small figures face each other as Lily confesses that half of who she is was shaped by him, and that without him she would be incomplete. He turns to her and asks if she remembers every lesson he drilled into her over the years, and she answers with desperate certainty that she remembers all of them. Smiling brightly despite the farewell, he tells her she will be fine as long as she keeps focusing on getting stronger, never stopping. Hands clenched over her chest, Lily says that instead of protesting his dismissal, what she truly wants is for him to live that way, true to himself. A stylized flower floats against a misty backdrop as his unseen voice gently asks Lily if she would accept it from him now. Tears trembling in her wide eyes as the flower rests in her hair, Lily breathes out a soft, emotional yes that barely leaves her lips. He smiles in relief as Lily shyly touches the flower, calling it a rushed farewell gift that somehow feels enough for this painful moment. Lily suddenly blurts that she will do something for him, her urgency cutting through the ache of parting like a lifeline. With a soft, hopeful grin, he tells her that, in that case, he wants her to hire him once she is grown, turning goodbye into a promise. Tears shimmering, she vows that when she grows up he will be her butler serving her tea, clinging to that promised future with both hands. The quiet sky hangs above as unseen voices murmur that curfew nears and a faint reluctant yes answers, stretching out the last seconds. On the empty brick path, she chokes out goodbye, while he walks away as if her desperate sensei cannot reach his retreating back. He leaves the academy grounds alone, his steady footsteps hiding the hollow weight of exile pressing on his shoulders. Her softened face flickers across his mind with the thought that she feels a bit better, only for another memory to intrude with a panicked however. Scratching his head with a weary sweat, he admits the real problem now is what he is supposed to live on with no position left. In profile he stares ahead, torn between not wanting to give up teaching and the dawning sense that he might have to for good. Facing the vast sky, he accepts that his calling as a teacher has been thrown away and left behind on those academy grounds. A looming mansion glows through the night leaves, its bright windows hiding whatever awaits inside for the fallen instructor. A sharp step slams down, signaling someone's tense approach as the quiet corridors brace for news. A small maid rushes down the corridor, her crossed arms and frantic steps betraying rising panic she cannot calm. Shrouded figures sit around a table, the heavy silence making their meeting feel more like a judgment than a simple introduction. Nervously pressing her hands together, the girl wonders aloud what sort of man their father has hired to instruct them, calling out to Isuna for reassurance she does not feel. Another girl slumps forward, bitterly saying she no longer cares and that this teacher will be no different from the rest who disappointed them. Legs crossed in cool confidence, the seated woman insists she does not need such instruction, even while pointedly saying her sister clearly does. Startled, the short-haired girl jerks up with a sharp ah, demanding what on earth the other is talking about and bristling. Throwing her arms behind her head, she loudly declares she does not need it either and pointedly challenges Femme for agreement on the spot. Hidden beneath her hood, the maid's body trembles so hard the fabric shakes, betraying fear she cannot voice in front of them. Framed by a burst of flowers, the composed maid steps into the doorway, masking her nerves behind a careful, unreadable gaze for her mistresses. With her back stiff, she volunteers to fetch the new instructor at once, while the other girls slump in gloomy, resentful silence that fills the room. At the head of the table, the central girl coolly announces that the 5 of them will soon confront yet another so-called teacher, and expectations sink. 2 elders beam in pride, hailing Frey as the commoner's champion and welcoming the once prestigious teacher into their midst with open arms. In a heartbeat, their smiles sour as they spit that he is a disgrace who preyed on a student and should just slink home in shame. Frey walks through whispering streets, his face hollow as he recalls how every denial of the false charges only drew more suspicion and scorn. He feels the weight of the bulging bag drag at his arm and mutters that he clearly bought far more than he can carry in one trip. Stopping at the mailboxes, he rifles through the slots with a tired expecting the usual emptiness and finding only dust. His hand freezes around a lone envelope bearing his name, and he wonders in disbelief what message has finally found him since his dismissal. Later, under a cold full moon, he trudges along a dirt path with only a lantern's glow to cut his lonely exile ahead. A rough voice suddenly bellows, "Hey, sensei," from behind, yanking him out of that quiet solitude with raw hostility. Grinning with drunken malice, the villager waves a bottle and jeers that Frey must be off to some night party, branding him a disgrace yet again for sport. When Frey turns away without reacting, the drunk stiffens in shock, stunned that his baiting earns only silence and a calm back. Snarling bastard, the man whips the bottle at Frey's back in a reckless burst of rage, shattering the stillness. Frey calmly traces a magic circle and whispers, "Wind," turning the attack aside with a detached, practiced ease that shows his skill. The bottle whirls past him and rockets back through the air, its speed slicing the night like a thrown stone. Glass explodes across the drunk's face, his howl of pain cutting through his earlier bravado and echoing down the road. Ignoring the man's furious demand to be released, Frey walks off and coolly says he will let him go once the sun rises on a sobered morning. Looking back with level eyes, Frey remarks that for a drunk the man has impressive aim and tells him he should put that unexpected talent to better use. Frey walks away with his lantern as the trussed-up drunk spits after him, mocking that he still acts like a teacher and calling him an idiot, the insult chasing him down the dark road. Beside the fallen bottle, his thoughts sink that no matter what he does from now on, no one will ever take him seriously again, and the weight of that settles like lead. Holding the letter, he stares ahead and wonders about the unknown person who dared to send it, the name on the envelope looping in his mind. The neat signature and attached map promise a meeting, bluntly stating they want to hire him as a teacher despite everything, a claim that feels almost unreal. His step lands hard as he realizes that, with such a ruined name, someone still wants to give him work at all, and the shock does not fade. Lantern in hand and face shadowed, he senses how unnervingly strange this entire offer feels, as if the night itself is holding its breath. He pushes through the forest toward a lonely shack, the glowing doorway daring him to trust the promise inside and cross into whatever awaits. Under the stark trees he hesitates, suspecting this might be another cruel trap like the one Arius sprung, and wonders if he is walking into danger all over again. Facing the shut door, he mutters that he is no longer a decent man and questions why he even came this far when turning back is still possible. A strained smile and nervous sweat betray him, as he admits he probably came only because his curiosity overpowered his caution, dragging him to this threshold. He creeps along the creaking exterior with his lantern raised, searching the shadows for any sign of the one who summoned him, each step slower than the last. Silence answers, and his thoughts drop that no one is actually here to meet him, the empty woods pressing closer. Peering through the doorway, he concludes in weary disappointment that the entire invitation must have been a cruel joke, and the hope he felt fizzles. Then a maid's silhouette materializes behind him, her calm words that she has been waiting for him jolting his eye wide with shock. Her placid gaze and composed stance reveal nothing, yet her blank expression makes her sudden appearance feel even more unsettling in the quiet shack. Flustered, he demands when she slipped in, and if she somehow came from behind him, desperate to explain her uncanny presence in any logical way. She thanks him for coming and flatly states she has been there from the very beginning, leaving him staring in baffled disbelief that he never noticed her. Bowing with restrained formality, she introduces herself as Rose and explains that her master sent her in his stead, shifting the mystery to someone higher. When she briskly says further details will be given at the mansion, he throws up his hands and protests that he has not even agreed to this job yet, frustration poking through his shock. Jaw tight and voice sharp, he presses her to reveal who her master actually is and where this mysterious workplace lies, the questions piling up. From the shadows of the shack, her calm voice urges him to stop shouting and simply come to the mansion if he wants answers, while an unseen retort barks back in protest, and the air grows tense. Standing before the door with cool formality, the maid lays down her condition that if he truly wishes to reach the mansion, he must dare to cross this threshold. Her outstretched hand turns the doorway into a test as she adds that otherwise he is free to walk away the same lonely road he came, leaving the choice squarely on him. He looks back over his shoulder in heavy silence while she waits behind him, letting the choice pressure him until his chest feels tight. Sweat beating, he admits to himself that trailing after a maid who hunted him down for a job offer feels dangerously suspicious. His foot hovers at the edge of the floorboards as he concedes that everything about this invitation reeks of danger, from the shack to her unreadable eyes. He stares at the door and almost retreats, thinking he never even knew why he came, before something inside refuses to let him say no and holds him there. In a quiet flashback, his former self remembers that it was always the fate of troubled students that gnawed at him most, that same concern tugging at him now. Jaw set yet anxious, he finally tells her he will follow and at least hear what she has to say, choosing to move forward. She answers with a muted "I see," her profile unreadable as if weighing his resolve and filing away this first decision. From across the rough table she turns and instructs him to follow her, taking control of his uncertain decision and setting the pace. Seen from behind, she softly confides that she had been sure all along he was a good teacher, her words floating back like a quiet verdict. He blinks in confusion at that unexpected praise and asks what exactly she is talking about, his guard wobbling. Watching her from the side, he wonders in a nervous sweat if she somehow peered straight through his thoughts, only to doubt his own paranoia a moment later. Together they emerge before a sprawling, starlit mansion whose sheer size swallows their small figures in its glow, and the scene feels almost unreal. His mouth drops open and a strained wow escapes as awe battles with unease at the impossible sight stretching before him. As the blank space shimmers around him, he realizes the forest has vanished and this place is something entirely different from where they stood. The truth slams in that the instant they crossed that gate she warped them here with transfer magic, revealing power he never saw her cast and deepening the mystery. His thoughts race in the dark, grasping for hidden circles or chants at the hut's door, yet finding no trace of any normal spellwork he recognizes. Staring at the maid's back, he grows wary and wonders if this entire teleporting spectacle and even her elusive master exists solely to lure him into some unknown scheme. As the two of them walk the endless corridor, he can only gape inwardly at how obscenely huge this place feels, each step stretching his nerves thinner. Walking beside her, he nervously insists on meeting the daughters before their father, while she coolly replies that was already her intention. Her detached voice explains through the doorway that the master is not here at all, leaving him to wonder uneasily if the man is working elsewhere or simply absent by design. With a calm, almost empty gaze, she clarifies that the entire castle exists solely to educate the master's daughters, jolting his surprise at such a grand purpose. Her explanation hangs over a dark backdrop as she reveals the girls are all sisters who once lived apart with their own mothers, now forced under one roof for convenience. Facing his alarmed stare, she states that since the master never uses this castle, he decided turning it into a school would simply be cheaper, stunning him with that cold practicality and the scale of it. Sweat trickling, he pieces together that his new students are multiple girls bound by blood, a family tangle he never expected. Trailing behind her, he halts and awkwardly questions how these sisters could have grown up with different mothers, the implication nodding his thoughts. She glances back over her shoulder and, perfectly composed, asks if he has any further questions, her tone giving nothing away. Flustered by her poise, he backs down with a stammered denial, swallowing the doubts twisting in his throat and choosing silence for now. His thoughts darken as he wonders if these girls are hidden illegitimate children of some noble whose scandal must never see daylight, then quickly doubts even that wild guess as too simple. Her crisp announcement that they have arrived snaps him from his spiraling worries as he steels himself at the threshold, bracing for impact. From the vantage of shadowed figures, he steps into the grand room, unaware of the watchful eyes weighing him from the dark like judges. A bead of sweat slides down his cheek as he realizes with a jolt that the imposing silhouettes before him are the very girls he is meant to teach. His eye flares wide in shock as their presence hits him harder than any accusation ever did, the air around them charged. One girl smiles with cutting delight, declaring him exactly as she expected, pathetic and weak, her words slicing straight through him. Another, horns sharp and eyes cold, sneers that bringing a mere human before them is nothing but an insult, her disdain absolute. A third girl shouts that he is weaker than she is, and that someone inferior could never teach her anything, dismissing him outright without a pause. Blushing yet tense, another sister admits she has never even met a human, her words turning her curiosity into an awkward rejection that still stings. Beneath a shadowed hood, the smallest figure barely moves, quietly echoing pathetic like a final, merciless verdict that seals the mood. Frey freezes mid-step and shouts for them to wait as the demon girls sit unfazed, treating his plea like background noise. His gaze darts over fangs, pointed ears, and horns, and his thoughts stumble that he cannot even name what kind of creature she is. Staring wide-eyed and reaching out, he stammers inwardly if these terrifying girls before him might actually be demons. Rose answers with a simple yes, her flat tone making his shock feel even more hollow and inescapable. With a composed gesture toward the desks, Rose announces that the 5 scornful girls are none other than the Demon King's daughters, and the air turns heavier. A swirling void fills the frame as narration recalls the endless, bloody tug-of-war between humans and demons. Blinding light erupts as the voice declares that at the heart of that war stand only 2 figures, the hero and the Demon King. Frey's tense profile admits that the academy he once served at existed to forge the next generation of heroes, and that he was the one teaching the chosen hero. Split panels of sharp demon eyes close in on him as he reveals that he is now the teacher of the Demon King's daughters, the contrast dizzying. Beside his stiff face, Rose calmly states that this will be his job, even as an off-panel voice orders her not to waste her time on him. One daughter leans over the desk in contempt, scoffing that a human man as their teacher is a terrible joke. Another sister smirks in the shadows, laughing that Isuna has already lost, her amusement needling the others. Isuna's face twists in offended confusion as she demands what this lost nonsense is supposed to mean, bristling. Arms folded and wings spread, the ponytailed sister coolly explains that gathering them here can only mean a contest to decide who inherits their father's throne. Her half-lidded stare cuts across to Isuna as she sneers that someone who cannot even read the mood is nowhere near ready for this struggle. Watching them, Frey nervously analyzes that the girl called Isuna might be younger and wonders if the ages line up from left to right. His eye spirals as he realizes he is compulsively trying to categorize them again, cursing this ingrained teacher's habit even in a demon classroom. The voluptuous sister glares across the room and snaps that Isuna has always been unbearably bossy, old resentment flaring. Isuna straightens with a sharp smile, insisting she only acts according to her superior abilities and challenging what the others can claim. Tension crackles between the 2 demon sisters as they step toward each other under a flurry of sound effects, with Frey trapped helplessly in the background. Frey yells in alarm about deadly magic buildup, while Rose calmly tells him not to worry, sharpening the fear that he might actually have to fight. The 2 younger sisters cling and shriek in comic panic as a detached voice notes their toxic bond hasn't turned truly violent yet. From the center of the classroom he pieces it together with a hard stare, calling their feud what it is: bullying. He suddenly slices between the demon sisters with crossed arms, physically cutting off their clash before it explodes. Sweat on his cheek and eyes steady, he rejects their behavior outright, muttering that this kind of day cannot become normal. All 4 demon girls snap to attention with stunned faces, their earlier arrogance cracking into raw surprise. Arms crossed like a barrier, he coolly gauges them, thinking he already holds their focus even if the hooded one still worries him. With his hand thrust toward the winged sister, he analyzes how their clashing elements let him slip between their spells. Turning that same measuring hand on the horned beauty, he notes that while their affinities differ, their sheer magical power is almost identical. In a chibi burst of calculations, he lines their fire and ice levels in his head, vowing to counter the instant either one casts, and the pressure shows. Moments later, laughter replaces killing intent, as one sister calls it fun while the other glares and Frey watches warily, hands still half-clasped. Smiling like she owns the room, the winged sister casually declares the meeting over and announces she will retreat to her chambers. The horned girl jabs at Frey with a sharp warning not to get cocky just because he showed a hint of talent. Facing him squarely, she coldly explains that matching their magic today does not mean she or her sister ever fought him seriously. Her chibi face trembles with anger and embarrassment as he apologizes, saying he had assumed it was only a game but wanted to prevent disaster. Turning away with tail flicking and eyes hard, she spits that she will never recognize him as their teacher, leaving her rejection hanging in the doorway. He calls out a tentative, "Hey," trying to stop the widening rift before it swallows his role completely. Instead, the dark-skinned sister whips a kick straight at his head, forcing him into a split-second fight-or-freeze reaction. Foot still poised near his face, she coolly remarks that after blocking their magic she expected sharper reflexes from him. As she flips lightly through the air above, he stares up in mute astonishment, realizing too late that even their weakest sister moves far beyond him. As Frey stands stunned in the classroom, the dark-skinned sister darts away, leaving only the echo of her effortless attack and his shaken pride behind him. The elf girl leans in with half-lidded eyes and flatly mocks that his lack of reaction makes him painfully dull, twisting the knife in the lingering silence. At the doorway, she bows in shame while Frey awkwardly greets her, and she apologizes on behalf of her sisters as he stammers that he knew there was no real danger anyway. Facing him with downcast eyes, she quietly confesses that her sisters are all prodigies, while she alone lacks their talent, letting the words sag between them. Sweat beading and voice trembling, she vows again and again that she will do her utmost to continue his training, clinging to that promise like a lifeline. He turns away with a strained smile, saying he will head to his room while she droops beside him under the weight of her promise, and the air turns heavier. A heartbeat later, she trips and pitches forward, and he grabs her waist in a frantic, instinctive catch that pulls them chest to chest before either can think. They spring apart in flustered panic, Frey apologizing as he checks if she is hurt while she stutters apologies of her own, both red to the ears. In stark profile, he grimly recalls his rule to never touch female students, even as Rose calmly remarks that she had thought him incapable of doing so at all. He suddenly shouts for her to wait and not rush things, protesting that he has not even agreed to this teaching job yet, his voice cracking on the last word. A quiet door fills the frame as an unseen voice suggests they move the conversation elsewhere, closing off the volatile classroom like a lid on boiling water. Frey's face hardens with suspicion as he demands to know if those unruly girls truly are the Demon King's daughters, needing the truth nailed down. Rose answers without a blink that they are indeed the daughters of Demon King Hazur, sealing the weight of their bloodline with a simple nod. Sitting in the furnished study, he admits in a low, dazed voice that the luxury of this castle still unnerves him, every cushion feeling like foreign soil. Gazing at the ornate vases, he silently compares this room to his old life and thinks such comfort would once have been impossible for someone like him. The Horned sisters' earlier words replay in his mind as Rose explains that the rivalry is about which girl will inherit their father's throne, raising the stakes of every lesson. Reeling, he jabs a finger at his own chest and shouts if they seriously expect a mere human like him to train the next Demon King, voice echoing off stone. Rose meets his outburst with cool eyes, stating that the master specifically requested Frey and no one else for that role, leaving no room for escape in her tone. The door shuts with a soft thud as her departing voice leaves the choice hanging, asking him to sleep on the request instead of answering now. Alone in the wide corridor, Rose walks away in silence, leaving Frey isolated with the decision that could reshape the war and his own life. A maid bursts into the room as Rose turns with a calm stare, tension rippling between shadow and light at the sound of her name. The braided maid, eyes hidden in shadow, anxiously wonders if that human will really accept the position, framing the question like a looming verdict. Walking the corridor, Rose tells her not to fret, insisting his humanity means he will never truly bend to demon demands, no matter what he decides. A stark thought bubble carves out the stakes, claiming he has 3 reasons he cannot refuse this post, and the pressure shows. Images of rejection and gossip crowd around Frey on the street as narration cuts in that his stained reputation makes human work scarce and doors close fast. Frey lies alone on the narrow bed while the voice concedes that though crossing races is dangerous, such work with demons may be his only path forward. Staring at the ceiling with hands behind his head, he wrestles with his rigid sense of justice that keeps dragging him into trouble he cannot ignore. His expression hardens as he silently calls out to his parents and vows he cannot keep tripping over the same failures forever. Memories of catching the hopeful elf girl and his arms stab through him as he wonders why a stranger would pin such expectations on him in the first place. Gazing sideways in the dark, he frets that she might already be judging him for that humiliating scene, her eyes replaying in his mind. Eyes half closed, he admits that if he refuses this job, he will never have to face that unsettling gaze again, tempting himself with escape. Morning light slices over the castle roof, turning his private decision into something that feels irrevocably public as the day begins. From the balcony edge, his unseen form stirs, the quiet ledge framing the moment before he throws his choice into the open and cannot take it back. The 4 demon sisters line up in stark portraits, each face set in wary, hostile curiosity toward the man who dared accept them as students. Frey steps out and bellows a strained, "Good morning," forcing cheer into a courtyard thick with resentment and barely veiled threat. The elf girl's radiant smile greets him like worship, even as his thoughts churn that he barely knows her and cannot shoulder what she seeks from him. Gripping the windowsill with grim resolve, he calls to Rose for one last clarification, needing something solid before he commits fully. Her calm eyes fill the frame as she repeats the unseen question about his 3rd reason, answering that the truth is almost embarrassingly simple. A close profile of Frey's determined face answers for her, declaring that no matter the employer, teaching is the one calling he cannot betray. Against a star-speckled backdrop, his inner voice introduces himself as Frey Garnet, bracing to step into the role he can no longer run from. Frey slams his hands on the lectern and declares that from today he will be their teacher, forcing his resolve against the sisters' cold silence that follows. He stares blankly and flicks his fingers in front of the desk while the dark-skinned girl gapes, the awkward pause thickening their distance. A rolled paper bonks down on her head, and she erupts in teary outrage as the sudden smack shatters her sleepy haze and jolts the room. She jumps up snarling what he thinks he is doing while he coolly replies that he is only waking her, turning drowsiness into open hostility. From the podium he coolly points out she passed out right after his introduction and asks if he seems that boring, needling her pride in front of the room. Slouched over her desk, she clicks her tongue that human lessons are dull, spitting her contempt at both class and teacher without restraint. In a dark void of shock, her unseen voice stammers why he knows her name and whispers that it cannot be possible for a human to read her that easily. He answers with weary annoyance that he simply read her file, deflating her wild guess of magic as she recoils in disbelief. The elf girl leans close with nervous sweat, pleading that San-chan obey the teacher while San scowls harder, refusing to yield an inch. Frey softens his tone, asking them to introduce themselves and calling on Anna to share her name and abilities so he can hear them directly. Anna stands with a flat gaze and politely claims she has no special talents beyond perhaps sword play, ending with a curt greeting that keeps him at arm's length. His inner narration twists her modest words into a hidden boast that she excels at everything and implies he has nothing to offer her in any field. Isuna introduces herself with cool superiority, stating she excels in many fields but masters magic above all, daring him to challenge her expertise if he dares. His thoughts darken as he decides this girl despises him even more than San, and imagines she would crush him without hesitation if given the chance. San yanks off her outer shirt and bluntly announces she is San, good at physical exercise, flaunting her confidence like a threat she wants him to notice. His inner voice grudgingly notes her bright, sociable nature, while also feeling the sharp sting of her strong aversion to him. Fia raises a hand and hurriedly explains she is the fourth daughter with no special gifts, insisting she is not secretly boasting like Anna, exposing her insecurity. The narration cuts in that this girl desperately lacks self-confidence, making her the most fragile piece in this volatile class. Cloaked in shadow, the hooded girl mumbles femme with a tiny voice, offering only her name while hiding everything else from view. Watching her, Frey thinks she sounds younger than expected and privately admits he still has no idea what kind of girl she really is. His eye softens with a quiet ache as he wishes he could understand these troublesome girls better, even while doubting he will last 3 months. Rose's blank gaze delivers the verdict that his entire employment hangs on a test scheduled exactly 3 months from now, no extensions. At the breakfast table, he stiffens and reaches out in disbelief, pressing to know the exam's content while the maid calmly refuses to tell him anything. Floating words in the dark lay out the cruel stage where Demon King Hazar himself will judge each daughter through trials tailored to their powers. Eyes closed, Frey steels himself as he admits 3 months is nothing and resolves to squeeze every possible advantage from that fleeting time. A close-up of his widening eye catches Rose calling his name, snapping him from resolve into uneasy attention. The winged sister lounges with predatory ease as she asks what their human teacher's first lesson will be, daring him to impress her. Frey forces a confident smile and declares that the subjects he chooses to teach will be entirely his own decision, not theirs. Nervous sweat beads on the elf and dark-skinned girl as he calmly announces they will begin from the very basics, refusing to flinch. With numbers exploding around him, he brightly proclaims that their first battlefield will be plain old arithmetic, of all things. San slumps over her desk with a scowl, scoffing that she knew he was boring and snarling she wants nothing that is not physical training. He protests that arithmetic is deep and fascinating while Anna, flustered and puffed up, insists it is exactly what San needs right now, fueling the clash. San snaps in confusion at his cryptic remark, demanding to know what he really means by that and why he keeps dodging a straight fight. Isuna leans on her hand with languid disdain, suggesting he can manage only arithmetic and pointedly asking if he lacks the skill for anything more advanced. Smirking with superior grace, she explains that among weak humans it is normal to talk big because they cannot actually teach real combat magic. San flares up beside her, accusing him of hiding his weakness behind strange excuses while Isuna's sharp right drives the insult deeper. Arms folded and thoughts simmering, Anna judges Isuna's influence as childish and resents that San has been dragged into the same petty attitude. Yet from her raised podium she coolly concedes that Isuna's point is fair and challenges him to prove himself by demonstrating his martial arts. Isuna then faces him with measured calm, saying they accept that their father chose him but insisting her doubts about his strength remain valid. San is thrust forward as the test piece, the sisters cheering that if he can defeat her, he is worthy, and if he loses, his unfitness will be obvious, leaving San wondering if she is being mocked as bait. Fia trembles between loyalty and fear as she begs San-chan and her sisters not to disturb the teacher, voice tripping over itself. San and Isuna snap in perfect unison, barking for Fia to stay out of it and shoving her concern aside like an annoyance. Deflated and tiny, Fia exhales a helpless sigh, her courage collapsing under their rebuke until she can only watch. Frey's calm stance hardens as he accepts their twisted logic and declares he will fight, letting resolve burn where lessons failed. His inner voice admits that lecturing about arithmetic's value would be useless now, and that he only wanted to warn them this challenge was a terrible idea. From high above the field, he looks down on the scattered girls and decides he must earn their recognition before education can begin. Fia clutches her hands and stammers that even adults cannot beat San-chan, insisting through rising panic that San is frighteningly strong. She hesitates, then adds that San is a legitimately skilled fighter, while Frey brushes off her worry with an easy reassurance. With a bright smile that clashes against the looming duel, he promises he will not hurt San and insists this is not a fight but merely a class. He calls San over in a casual tone, only for her to explode forward in a sudden blur that turns his invitation into an ambush. His hand rises almost lazily, meeting her charge with a soft touch that belies the violent momentum she carries. In the next instant, he catches her inverted kick with steady arms, stopping her full-force assault like it is routine. Facing the wary girl, he coolly notes he can defend himself even from this relaxed posture and quietly deduces the likely lineage of her dark elf mother. San crouches low with predatory grace, her dark elf body coiled and flexible, every line screaming agile danger. As she rockets toward him again, his thoughts dissect her race's high magic and how she is channeling that power straight into raw physical might. He concedes that an average adult would be outclassed by such force, yet a sharp still cuts through as he refuses to place himself among the average. San barrels in with wide-eyed fury, her mind reeling as she demands to know who this impossible human actually is. From the sidelines, the sisters watch in tense silhouette as their blows collide, shards of impact hanging between disbelief and dawning respect. Fia calls out Sensei in worried protest while Isuna scoffs that it is hilarious he acts tough yet only ever defends himself. Hannah abruptly cuts in with a firm no, breaking her lounging pose as if sensing something the others cannot about his defensive stance. Frey stands unshaken as slashing blows streak past, his calm control exposing how completely he is reading every attack and how far the gap between them has opened. Anna's eyes sharpen in profile as she finally grasps that his talk of arithmetic was a deliberate lesson meant specifically for San, not just boring theory. San crashes flat on her back, limbs flung wide, the earth swallowing her stunned defeat in a single heavy impact. From above her sprawled body, Frey coolly asks if this humiliating downfall has finally satisfied her and eased the fire in her chest. He looks down in wary concern, awkwardly offering to continue if she insists as his unfinished words hang in the air between them. San erupts into bawling fury, shrieking that he is unfair and must be cheating because she cannot stand never winning against him. Still pointing in outrage, she yells that he promised a real fight and begs Isuna to confirm he must have snuck in magic somewhere. Isuna folds her arms with a troubled frown and admits there was absolutely no trace of magic in his movements from start to finish. San sits small and frustrated while Frey's back looms over her, his calm voice saying it all follows simple logic and nothing more. Framed by a starburst void, he breaks down how he watched her eyes, breath, rhythm, and force to predict every move, then tells her that thinking first will make her stronger than she is now, and the air turns heavier. San glances back over her shoulder, repeating that arithmetic exists to sharpen that kind of thinking and make those split-second choices sharper. Frey's face tightens with sweat as he calls to her, silently worrying that crushing her this hard might wreck her confidence beyond repair. A sudden blast tears a crater at his feet, the shock lines flaring as he reels at the unexpected strike that interrupts his concern. In the explosion's afterglow, she clamps onto his back, using the chaos to cling to him in a desperate counterattack that turns panic into play. San's face bursts into sparkling joy as she beams up at him and calls his teaching amazing, the defeat already forgotten. Perched on his shoulders, she laughs that he should hurry and teach her arithmetic so she can power up fast while he snaps back that it is only the first step in training her mind. Jaw set and finger stabbing upward, he orders her to climb down and rush back to class, privately vowing never again to underestimate these wildly accurate personality files that nailed her. San's once hidden warmth now shines in a gentle smile beside his face, matching the quiet note that the third daughter is openly cheerful and kind at last, and the pressure shows. Izuna's mouth shapes a cold chant, as she commands her fire arrows to surge forth, and incinerate everything ahead without mercy. With a roaring magic circle spitting lines of flame, she thrusts out her hand and unleashes a torrent that turns raw power into a blazing threat that lights the sky. Flames roar behind her as Isuna jabs a finger at him, boasting that this merciless display is her true power and that beating San earned him nothing of real value. Her eye narrows with lethal confidence as she commands him to show everything he has now that he finally understands the gulf between their powers. A bead of dead silence freezes her face as the fiery bravado evaporates into stunned emptiness at what he does next. Around the table, Anna notes that Isuna must be shaken by Frey's strength, while Fia calls timidly to her frozen sister, not sure how to help. Fia cheerfully praises how unbelievable it was that Frey hurled 2 chantless fire arrows that scorched a tree larger than Isuna's, while Isuna twitches in mortified anger. Forcing a smile, Fia announces she will fetch Frey sensei, as Isuna silently seethes in the background like a brewing storm about to burst. Isuna clicks her tongue and looks away, bitterly accusing him of surely feeling very pleased with himself after showing off. Frey hunches over with hands to his head, his face shadowed by the weight of having crushed her pride too hard for his own comfort. Slumped at the table beneath his worries, he mutters to the maid that this is bad and frets aloud that Isuna might sink into insecurity. With steady eyes, the maid calmly says she will not dictate anything and entrusts every teaching method entirely to him, whatever he chooses. Frey leans on his hand, uneasy, and questions why he flaunted his strength at all if he truly cared this much about their feelings. He recalls telling the maid how at the academy he had to act a certain way, maintaining strict behavior just to keep order among difficult students. A shadowed memory shows him in uniform, admitting that educating aristocrats was suffocating because he had to win their respect without ever wounding their fragile pride. He remembers with a faint smile that only the commoner students listened earnestly to his lessons, sharing his own roots and hunger to learn. Hands clenched before him, he now realizes that if he had dared show real strength back then, the students might have acknowledged him, and he could have nurtured more talent. From across the round table, he explains that the human world is chained by hierarchy, where even willing noble children could not freely choose a commoner as their teacher. The maid's face softens in the dark as she notes that in such a system, they are practically forced to be educated only by those their station permits them to select. Frey's gaze hardens with regret as he admits that, regardless of status, he should have stepped up and done it as a true teacher. He scratches his cheek with a nervous smile, confessing that this history makes him scared of messing things up again even while he tries his hardest now. The maid answers firmly that his fear is no flaw, reminding him that being a teacher who still learns, grows, and struggles is exactly how it should be. The maid's deadpan threat to kill him if results don't come in 3 months leaves Frey sweating under the weight of her ruthless encouragement and bizarre support. Isuna appears in the doorway with a startled glow while her sister in front stares blankly, tension prickling the air between them as they listen. As her fingers nervously squeeze her dress, memories of Frey's flustered reactions flash by, and she admits that even a formidable teacher like him wrestles with doubt. Suddenly fired up, she pumps her arm and vows to give everything she has, turning hurt pride into fuel. Silent shelves loom in the empty library, turning the search for answers into a lonely trial that echoes every footstep. Walking between the stacks, Frey murmurs that he needs to talk to Isuna, and quietly worries she might still be hurt by what happened. Spotting her at a desk, he wonders uneasily if she has buried herself in demon psychology texts to escape him entirely. Glowering over a book, Isuna swears she will never let him surpass her and decides to rebuild herself from the fundamentals up. Reading aloud with rigid focus, she recites dense definitions of magic as if sheer theory can patch the crack in her pride. Frozen mid-aisle, Frey aches to guide her yet decides with reluctance that leaving her struggle alone might be kinder for now. Scratching his head as he turns away, he tells her he will just find something interesting to read elsewhere so he will not intrude. Outside on the grass, he sits alone with an open book, using its pages as a shield from his restless thoughts and circling worries. San suddenly tackles him from behind with a fierce hug, shouting his name while his eyes widen in alarm at the surprise. Grinning right in his face, she bounces with curiosity and asks if his book holds secret martial techniques or more arithmetic tricks. With stars in his eyes, he proudly reveals the title and starts to announce the tale of Earth Terra. Over a backdrop of guns and city blocks, he excitedly explains that Earth Terra is an imaginary world rendered so vividly it feels disturbingly real. Waving the volume, he gushes that the cast is what hooks him most, especially the hero in Volume 3 with that unforgettable pose that burned into his memory. In a stark void, a younger girl strikes that same ridiculous stance, leaving present-day Frey to watch in second-hand embarrassment that prickles his skin. His expression flattens into exasperated silence, the book half raised as he questions his life choices and past obsessions. Rubbing the back of his neck, he admits the series is beloved by every kind of reader, yet he has never really belonged to such a book-loving crowd himself. He studies the book in his hands, musing that he never knew this place held human entertainment novels, and fretting that the final volume is missing. Images of San, Isuna, and Fia fill his thoughts as he quietly acknowledges how their growing trust in him tightens the pressure not to fail them. A shadowed hand lifts in the dark as someone softly wonders if they still remember how to use that power. She appears against a starry void, fingers to her lips, as another self strides forward with ominous purpose and hidden resolve. With cool calculation, she notes she can copy Frey's magic easily, and that he clearly held back his true strength during their clashes. Her lips curve in hungry excitement as she admits she wants to cross blades with him someday and feel that power head-on. Perched above the classroom, she resolves to keep pushing him, saying she will test him rather than naively expect some perfect mentor to save them. Wearing a queen's robe and clutching a tiny Frey doll, she reminds herself that he is only a human hire while she alone rules this castle. A hooded figure mutters about Femme, hinting that something unfinished still hangs over the girl's absence. Walking through visual noise like static, the cloaked watcher observes that she has stayed away so long that Frey remains utterly ignorant of who she really is. Facing a towering blaze, the robed girl decides he must bond with those two sisters if he hopes to reach the goal he chases. Her eyes widen as a charred branch crackles and sheds embers, the sudden decay betraying that something is wrong with her flames. She stares at the dying fire in confusion, wondering aloud if the spell chewed through her magic faster than she ever calculated. Turning her back on the scorched tree, she dismisses the anomaly with a bored hum and claims she does not care, masking a flicker of unease. Frey leans forward with wary curiosity, suggesting they inspect this strange phenomenon more closely while it is fresh. Peeking from behind a wall, she scowls and whispers that she wishes she could uncover his weaknesses while watching him head off somewhere alone. Under the forest canopy, he studies a burned trunk, saying he sensed something earlier and now sees fresh scorch marks etched into the bark. A trail of sunken footprints stretches ahead, each hollow print deepening the mystery that pulls him onward. Pushing through the undergrowth, he notes that the path leads farther from the castle, and that the unexplained footprints keep materializing under his feet. Parting the last of the bushes, he stops in surprise, realizing with a tight breath that this lonely clearing is where the enigmatic trail abruptly ends. He halts before the hollowed giant tree, tense, as the hooded girl sits curled inside like a secret waiting to be exposed. Stepping into the dim hideout, he blurts out her name in shock while she clutches her book and stammers his title in startled disbelief. Hand over his mouth, he frets that he has stumbled into her secret refuge and panics that Femme will resent him for invading it. His gaze drops to the book in her hands and jolts as he recognizes Earth Terra's story and realizes it is the elusive final volume. Hidden eyes glint beneath the hood as she nervously asks if he, too, cherishes this book. He flashes an eager grin with the volume raised, trying to reassure her while his excitement threatens to overwhelm the fragile moment. From behind a distant tree, San watches them in uneasy silence, wondering what private words are passing between teacher and cloaked girl. Her shoes crunch closer through the undergrowth as she vows that if he does anything suspicious to Femme, she will never forgive him. Between the trees, the two stand facing each other in a fragile stillness, neither quite knowing how to bridge the gap. Studying her hidden form, he admits to himself that he still has no idea what kind of person she is. He pictures her small hooded figure, concluding she is still a timid child who hides in books and shyness, nothing more. A sharp step snaps a branch nearby, shattering the quiet with a jolt of impending interruption. Both of them whirl around, eyes wide and bodies tensed, blindsided by the sudden noise behind them. A startled cry rings out as a girl's hand thrusts forward, ripping away the cloak that had shielded Femme's identity. Revealed among drifting leaves, Femme sits exposed with her hood fallen, staring up in innocent confusion as the forest closes in. He stares, stunned, at her newly bare appearance, noting with a chill that her hair and skin are not just pale but unnaturally colorless. His focus locks on her eye, realizing with growing dread that her very features seem almost transparent. Femme's face crumples in panic, sweat beading as she lets out a broken scream at being seen like this. As her wail echoes through the trees, he rushes toward her while San arrives behind them, the air tight with guilt and alarm. His expression hardens in dawning realization as he concludes that this trembling girl's mother can only be someone extraordinary. Blinding light crashes down as the narration warns that a rare ghost-like species from between worlds is about to unleash a mysterious phenomenon on them all, and the tension does not ease. Half smiling, Frey wonders what the others are discussing while Femme hides behind a tree, watching him with anxious curiosity from the shadows. He beams straight at her and gently presses which part of Earth Terra the story she treasures the most, trying to draw her out. Femme falters, clutching her cloak as she tries to answer, while Frey leans in, tense and eager, insisting that would be. Steam curls through the vast bath hall as Isuna soaks alone, unaware that someone's approach is about to disturb her fragile calm. With a mild start, Fia turns her head and remarks that she had not noticed Isuna was here, breaking the quiet. Smiling in the water, Isuna admits she thought she would have the bath to herself at this late hour, her guard still lowered. Looking down with weary eyes, she explains that she only came because her body felt grimy, the words carrying a heavier exhaustion that lingers. Outside the cratered cliff, one sister remarks that the earlier blast was terrifying and calls it a miracle Isuna survived after being caught up in it. Frey's face tightens as he asks if Isuna and Femme are truly unharmed, the worry in his voice cutting through the calm like a blade. Kneeling over Isuna's sprawled body, he shouts her name and demands to know what that sudden attack was, confessing he only just managed to throw up a barrier. Her eyes fly open, blazing with shock and blush, as she realizes the compromising position they have crashed into together. Clutching at her horns, Isuna sputters what while her sister presses that Frey was there too, forcing a flustered confirmation from her. Frey tells Fia that Femme has locked herself away and admits, frustrated, that he has no idea how to reach the shaken girl now. Fia resolves to consult Rose and orders Femme's role kept secret for now, while wondering aloud if Frey is already asleep and oblivious to the storm. Later, in a dim storeroom, Frey slumps at the table as Rose enters with a candelabrum, the heavy silence between them thick with unasked questions. Sweat beading, he finally confronts her, asking if she knows more than she has let on about what happened, her name hanging in the dark like an accusation. Her calm voice explains that such an explosion is unprecedented, yet strange phenomena have long been noted around Miss Femme. Frey sits straighter, repeating phenomena and the records in disbelief, while Rose confirms with a grave nod that makes his gut sink. Rose lists malfunctions of magic tools and outright disappearance of magic as the candles between them sputter ominously, proving her point in real time. His mouth tightens as he refuses her plea and insists on hearing Lord Hazard's judgment himself, unwilling to back down. He jolts upright in the chair as Rose declares that this judgment will decide Femme's future and the fate of her terrifying, unexplained power. Silent text hangs in the dark, asking whether a girl like that can truly go on living here unchanged. As the air turns heavier, steam drifting around them, the sisters murmur that Frey is probably somewhere right now deciding Femme's fate. One sister shoots up in the bath, demanding how the other could know that and whether she had been prying into things again. Pouting with narrowed eyes, the horned girl admits everyone has been too oblivious to notice what is really happening. With a grave look, she explains that strange magic constantly circles Femme, and that today's attributeless blast makes suspicion unavoidable. Standing in the water, she wonders aloud if Femme simply lost control, while her sister falls silent under the chilling implication. The taller sister stares hard and notes that for someone who understands so much, the other seems disturbingly composed right now. Tilting her head, she answers that sisters are rivals anyway, as if dangerous jealousy were only natural in their world. In the dark, Frey's thoughts swirl over whether Femme will be isolated, sent back to her mother, or face something even harsher. Rose coolly states that the final decision about Femme will rest in Frey's hands, leaving him wide-eyed and shaken in his seat. He points to himself in disbelief as she reminds him that every young lady's treatment in this castle has been entrusted to him alone. A wry smile forms as he realizes she meant from the start to dump all the ugly choices on him if things went bad. His fingers flex tensely as he voices the awful possibility that they expect him to take the worst-case measures with Femme. He explodes in outrage, shouting that he could never use his own hands to do something so cruel to that girl. Striding through the black, he challenges the unseen authority, arguing that if he bears the choice, he can choose another path. A fingertip taps the candle flame as Rose gently prefaces that what she is about to say is only her personal view. Her gaze softens as she confesses she believes Frey is the one who should lead Femme and keep her from going astray. Still gripping the candelabrum, she faces him across the table while he repeats in disbelief that she wants him to teach Femme how to master that terrifying power. He grimly admits that doing the dirty work would almost be easier than standing against a power that could explode out of control at any second. Under the hood, Femme's small mouth parts in a timid murmur, her hidden gaze wavering with fragile uncertainty as the weight reaches her. Frey stands alone in the corridor, shoulders squared but eyes shadowed, dragging his resolve step by step toward Femme's door. He stiffens as he notices Isuna waiting ahead, arms folded and presence like a silent challenge blocking his way. Isuna steps forward with a probing stare, coolly asking if he has business in Femme's room beyond this point. On the bed, Femme curls into herself, black dress pooling around a body that looks ready to vanish into the mattress. Her head jerks up, eyes wide and trembling, as his voice from the hall calls her name through the darkness. By the shut door, Frey insists to Isuna that he and Isuna are fine and only got a little dirty, downplaying the chaos that nearly killed them. Inside, Femme lies stiff and bug-eyed, listening as the muffled question reaches her. What does she herself want to do now? Frey walks beside Isuna, voice heavy as he warns that at this rate Femme cannot keep living here, and even hints at sending her back to her mother. Isuna's eyes flash with conflicted shock as she declares that if Femme chooses to leave, she will not stand in her way. Facing the doorframe, Frey says that if Femme wants to remain as she is, then no, what she truly needs is to learn how to rule that power. His expression hardens into fierce resolve as he promises out loud that he will help her, absolutely and without retreat. Isuna blinks in bafflement, a nervous sweat bead forming as she blurts out a shaky question about what on earth he is doing. On the bed, Femme slowly turns, whispering Sensi with aching hope while sitting small and alone before the closed door. The remembered words float in the quiet. He had once gently asked which part of Earth Terra story she liked best. A sheet lifts awkwardly as her hand pokes out in a clumsy attempt to hide and yet still answer that distant question. In the forest clearing, Frey stares at the little hooded girl's raised hand and wonders if she is copying the hero's famous thumbs up from Volume 3. Grinning, he explains that the hero flashes that thumbs up when he pretends to be strong in a pinch, when he shares joy, and when he gives everyone hope. His thumb rises between them as the narration names the gesture a symbol of trust and a binding promise that will not break. Frey thrusts his glowing hand forward and, with eyes burning, vows he will help Femme and seals it as an unbreakable promise.